Good evening, everyone. Everyone here in the room tonight, everyone watching at home, I'd like to welcome you to the Kitty Hawk Town Council meeting, Monday, October 3rd, 2022, in the Kitty Hawk Town Hall at 6 o'clock p.m. If you're able to stand, please join us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Before we go any further in the meeting, I have a press release to read to the public. Just came in just a few minutes ago. On October 1st, 2022, Kitty Hawk Police Department was dispatched to the 4000 block of Smith Street after a 911 call for a dog running at large and being aggressive towards children. When the officer made contact with the owner of the dog came from under the house, aggressively charged the officer and bit him. The officer discharged his duty-issued weapon to stop the attack, and unfortunately, the dog did not survive. The police department will be investigating this incident to ensure the town's policy and criteria for discharge of a service weapon were followed. End of statement. Councilman Pruitt, I think you have a presentation to make for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Pruitt, let me say.
Mayor Garris, Town Council, thank you for this opportunity. This is an honor for me. This picture is a plaque that we have posted on a tree in Sandy Run Park. And it says, in recognition of Tom Hefner, Kitty Hawk Recreation Committee member from 2013 to 2022, passionate supporter of Sandy Run Park. Tell you a little bit about Tom. Tom came here 26 years ago, 24, however, 26 I think. He wanted to have his own pottery business, this amazing melody, and the town approved it. And Tom started coming to the meetings, and so we added it up. He's been over 600 meetings. He came to every planning board meeting, and has been to every town council meeting that he can make. He's been here. That's not counting serving on our recreation committee. Tom knows things. We put things in and they weren't being used. And Tom would bring it to our attention and say, hey, I got a better idea. And Tom, thank you for that. The kids, the youth of our town, and what you've achieved with the town of Kitty Hawk, these people were forever grateful. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jeff. Tom, you're one of a kind, buddy.
What an honor.
That's for sure, right? Only one of a kind like Tom, and we thank you. We're so appreciative for what you've done for this town for so long. And I'm speaking for council here, but thank you, Tom. Glad to see you here tonight. Just so you know, this was going to be done earlier, but you were not here at the meeting. So, okay. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jeff. Council, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Lynn, second.
Second.
Second by Charlotte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, public comment. I've got a couple of emails that we're going to be read into the record here tonight. Lynn, I know we've got some people signed up for public comment. If you could call them up one apiece, please, and If you're speaking for a group, that's fine. If you're speaking individually, we just ask you to hold your comments to 3 minutes apiece and speak directly into the mic. You can be heard better that way. Thank you.
Lynette Fenton.
Thank you. Thank you. You go ahead, ma'am.
The reason I'm here is about an incident at the 4,000 area of Smith Street, just 3 blocks from here. Last Saturday, our dog and family member was shot in our yard. Any person who has dogs and knows their value knows the emotional, physical, and spiritual support of our dogs. They give individuals, families, and communities identity and spirit. Dogs equal healthy humans, healthy families, increased exercise, better health, and the kind of community that I believe in my heart that Kitty Hawk is. Something's gone wrong, something shocking, and we should all be poised for a change. These are the events as my family and I recall. Early last Saturday morning, October 1st, a phone call was made to Kitty Hawk Police Department concerning a neighborhood dog loose. A dog known in this neighborhood to be kind and sweet to children. 2 playful family dogs at some point had made their way off the property, meandered around the cul-de-sac, maybe peed on a mailbox or 2, and made their way back into their own yard where the owner was doing yard work. Both the dogs were on their own property. They were not close to the road. They were easily within 40 feet into their driveway, nearly under their front porch steps. In that moment, my husband, who had been walked up on the porch to get something, looked up to notice a man in all black abruptly walking down into his Kitty Hawk neighborhood driveway with intention. He walked onto the dog's property and directly toward the dogs again. The dogs are in their own driveway. They're within 20 to 30 feet of their porch steps. This unknown man to the property owner is trespassing, never announces he is a police officer. This man abruptly walking on the private property towards the dogs, never announces his presence, never announces his gun is drawn, he never announces he will fire, he never announces to my husband to further retain the dogs. Within a few seconds, the owner spots this man and shots were fired. Not 1, but 3 shots at a family pet, a family dog, on our property, down our driveway. One right between the eyes. Of course, she was dead in an instant. She was dead next to our other dog. She's dead to curious neighbors. And we have shots fired at 9:30 in the morning in our neighborhood. And she's dead in front of the onlooking children. This first sheet is, here's the autopsy we pass around that has where the shots were fired. And the complete autopsy will be done on Wednesday from Roanoke Island.
Lynn, is it possible we could get someone to make copies of this for council tonight?
Yes. Here's the second page of it. The photo is more poignant where you can kind of see what the actual wounds are and then they are described. Am I done?
Yes, ma'am, unfortunately. You've got a great report here for us that I can show you will be read.
I know that it's graphic,
Yeah.
and There are some oddities in this situation that I think we all can address as human beings. The situation warrants further investigation. Any one of us that has a dog, you know in your heart something is not lining up. And I mean, you get it. There are so many what ifs we could get into. What if we had kids back by the fire pit? Thank goodness it was one adult who witnessed it. I was at work. I got called in. I ran screaming down the road, and Officer Dana, who is my neighbor and has known me 30 years, that I've known, so in my head I'm like, this cannot be true. This can't, I mean, and I go, Dana, we don't have somebody with a gun. Like, we have a gun. You will know what to do, Dana. You will know what to do. I do not even know what to do. We don't have a gun at our house. A gun? In our neighborhood? 9:30 in the morning? I get the whole dog thing, and that there could have been fear, and but what would really, something is mishandled in this. This didn't need to happen. This is something like really intense going on with this person who is a representation of our families and communities, and it's a disconnect. It is a solid, we cannot be for this type of behavior. This could have been any of us. Heck yeah, we're upset. Freaking dog slept on our pillows. Freaking love that dog. Avalon Pier has like they give her treats. One day she rushed in there, she had lost her collar in the shore break, and she goes in, and the bartender's like, oh yeah, hey Sage, how you doing? And then, we're a few steps behind. So she can go out and check out the pigeon situation on the pier. This was a real dog. This wasn't some like beast frowning at children.
You got the copies, Sandy, for us?
No.
Make sure we all get copies of that. Thank you, Ms. Vinton, very much.
Thank you.
for coming forward.
Thank you.
I know that was not easy to do.
No, it's two pages. 2 pages.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Council, make sure we keep this with the information Ms. Vinton just gave us. Okay, Lynn?
Jonathan Fenton.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Jonathan Fenton. I live at 4010 Smith Street in Kitty Hawk. So I'm going to continue the statement that Lynette was reading where she left off. So what happens next in these few moments? As I am in complete shock, watching my family member bleed out, and what the officer does next is gather all the shell casings off the ground and leaves the scene. Those are the facts leading up to the death of a registered therapy pet that was shot point blank in the head while she was in her own yard. Sage was in her own yard where an officer that did not identify himself walked directly towards her and shot her in the head. He never announces who he is or that he's an officer. He never announces he's going to fire. He just shoots 3 times. This officer was on duty at 6 a.m. Saturday morning. His partner had stated to me that morning that all officers are required to wear body cameras. They are also required to be sure the cameras are in working condition when they start their shift. The partner of the officer that shot our dog said to me that both of their cameras were in working order that morning. Remember, the officer that shot our dog was the only one on the scene when he fired shots and did not park his vehicle in sight of me. He did not announce his presence or ask me to further detain my dogs before shooting Sage in the head. I'd like to tell you that was the end of the torment for our family, but it wasn't. The two same officers were sent back to our street the very next morning after Sage was murdered to investigate an adjacent property. The same officer that shot our family dog came back the next morning while we were digging the hole to bury her. The same officer was sent back and used that opportunity to mock me by laughing at me as I wept. Our sweet pea, Sage, is dead. She will never wag her tail again. She will never lay her head in the sun. She will never jump in the ocean. She will never be there to ease my PTSD. Dead for doing what she was told by everyone around her. Dead for doing the right thing. Dead for being in her own yard. Dead for barking when a stranger rushed up on her own property, unannounced, with a gun drawn. Sage is dead. We would like Officer Meander relieved from his post. We don't feel that he represents our community in the way it should be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Fenton. You and Ms. Fenton too. Lynn?
Marty Griffin,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, Marty.
Council members.
Evening.
I hate to follow up after that one. Well, we're back in front of you again. Getting tired of us. Sorry about that. But we left the September meeting. We were encouraged and left with the understanding that the council wanted to ensure us our ability to continue our Sunday art markets at Roanoke Island Artisans. Since then, we submitted applications for 4 dates in October and November. Those applications were denied per the opinion of the town attorney, and now there are amendments being proposed to the town code. The big question I have is this: do we really need a permit for this type of event? Do we really need to pay fees to be on privately owned commercial property with full permission of the property owners? If it is decided that a permit is necessary for some reason, it should not unfairly restrict small business, which brings me to the proposed amendments. In section 1811, subsection 5, this is what was used to deny our most recent applications. We agree that this language should be removed from the code. We feel that this is the only amendment that is necessary, and this would allow us to be granted outdoor event permits. As for other proposed changes, to limit to only 2 events per year would be extremely restricted, especially in our case, which is just a 1-day event. And also it's limited to two events per year per parcel. Our parcel has 8 different businesses on site, so who gets to have the events? So what I'm asking is that the language as proposed be removed from section 1811, subsection 5 of the ordinance, which would allow us to comply immediately and not limit the number of events that can be held. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
As everyone can tell, this is on the agenda later on tonight for discussion. Next, Lynn.
Donna Griffin,
Okay.
Had some Wi-Fi printer issues tonight. I just have to take a minute because this is my longtime friend in class. I had seen it on Facebook. Okay, so I promise you I have calmed down since my last email that I sent. But at the last meeting, it was suggested that we take a look at the temporary use permit, so I did. It appears that all the types of sales addressed here are everything from Christmas trees to real estate developments. They were added with careful consideration, addressing the needs of the business to operate, as well as allowing the town to do their job, which is to provide public safety and the like. Mayor Garris, you have expressed multiple times that you wanted to accommodate, our solution to accommodate both sides of the road, and we are 100% in agreement. Uh-oh, there we go. And, whoops, that's not a touch screen. So the council can actually do this in part tonight if you choose to vote to strike the subsection 5 in section 1811 as proposed. And this will remove at least one hurdle to allow both sides the equal opportunity to host art markets inside or outside of their business. This would also be a good show of faith that it's not the council's desire to regulate business competition, as Councilwoman McLean pointed out last meeting. More importantly, we ask that the new, more restrictive proposed language be tabled for now to afford the same careful consideration that it deserves as much as Christmas tree sales. We all love our Christmas trees, but we need some handmade ornaments to go on them, right? So we appreciate Rob so much for all the work that he has done on this. But we feel that the proposal needs more direct input from the businesses involved. And I would personally be honored to serve on a planning board committee that's specifically purposed to handle the bigger points of this whole thing. We hope that, we know Rob can bring the technical code language and we'll bring the creativity and innovative business ideas. So hopefully someone from Trio will bring some onion dip, some caramelized onion dip. And, but I am seriously committed to helping town work this out.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
Amy Snowden.
Hey.
As she said, my name is Amy Snowden. I'm an artist and maker and business owner since 1996. I remit my quarterly sales taxes and pay federal and state taxes on my profits, making my business as legitimate as any others. And I'm here tonight in response to the difference between what came out in the amendments and how we left feeling last month, being encouraged that you were ready and willing to help us get back to work. I want to follow Donna. She addressed some of the specifics, and I just want to follow with what art means to a community and what it means to makers personally. I'd like to read from the website Americans for the Arts. The arts are fundamental to our humanity. They ennoble and inspire us, fostering creativity, empathy, and beauty. The arts also strengthen our communities socially, educationally, and economically. And the following reasons show why an investment in artists and art organizations is vital to the nation's post-pandemic healing and recovery. Arts unify communities, regardless of age, race, and ethnicity. Arts strengthen the economy. The nation's arts and culture sector is 4.3% of the nation's economy, a larger share of the GDP than sectors such as agriculture, transportation, and construction. Arts drive tourism and revenue to local businesses. Arts travelers are ideal tourists, staying longer and spending more to seek out authentic culture experiences. And arts have social impact. University of Pennsylvania researchers have demonstrated that a high concentration of the arts in a city leads to higher civic engagement, more social cohesion, higher child welfare, and lower poverty rates. Please don't underestimate the contribution of individual artists and makers and outdoor markets and festivals, the contribution that we make to this culture in the Outer Banks. From a website the Outer Banks of North Carolina. This quote, "We invite you to experience the Outer Banks with a new filter through creativity of individuals with the ability to see beyond the five senses. Share a deeper understanding of what it means to have an Outer Banks soul with those who create tangible connections to it every day. Does it make sense to offer this invitation and then limit the opportunities for it to happen?" And let me point out that people want to truly connect with art, which means connecting to the artist who made it. This doesn't happen in traditional stores. It happens face-to-face at markets and festivals, which leads me to the perspective of the artist.
How close are you?
2 points.
We really got, okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just that we thrive on that connection as artists. We're born to create, and we need to see the joy that it brings to people. And we can't, if we don't have the opportunities, we're forced to become wholesalers. We can't always afford the split of our selling price, and we can't make up the difference in quantity when we're making one-of-a-kind pieces. And lastly, that sometimes a non-traditional career is necessary for a person or family. Examples are a special needs child who's a lifelong dependent, and consecutive days of a traditional job makes it impossible to be available. Health issues that make it impossible to have a traditional schedule and or a traditional career that doesn't make ends meet, and we're forced to find. So I'm just asking that you not make it harder for people who are overcomers and are looking for creative paths to support their families.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lynn?
Is it Amy? Yes. Is Thibodeau? Oh.
Hi, my name's Amy Thibodeau. I did not plan to talk, so I don't have really anything prepared other than my account of the incident that occurred this past Saturday morning. This is my family, this is my son, this is my son's father and his wife. This is considered our family dog. That morning, a neighbor made a phone call that the dogs were loose again, so they have a tendency to leave the yard at times. There has been an introduction to the neighbor and her children. The dog is sweet to them, they know that. It was a Saturday morning that she did not want to see the dog out. So the call was made, the dogs were back in the yard, and Jonathan was outside doing yard work and has made his way just barely up the steps of his yard. The dogs were not directly under the house, but right next to the steps of the house. And no police vehicle pulled in sight. Jonathan was up on the porch able to see past beyond his driveway. Could not see a police vehicle, did not realize that someone was there until he saw a human approaching abruptly down his driveway. And I don't mean from here to you guys, I mean double that amount into the driveway. Never announced that he was a police officer, never announced he was there. Not even sure Jonathan would have seen him if he hadn't looked up and seen him. So in that few seconds time frame, he made his way directly to the dogs and shot Sweet Pea 3 times in the head in her own yard next to her other dog. Now mind you, Jonathan's father 10 years ago was murdered. This dog was his PTSD registered dog, okay? He witnessed this right in front of him on a Saturday morning. Not only that, the family across the street was quickly shuffled out the door with their 3 crying children and left for the entire weekend. So here we are with our dead dog in the yard. At the time she was shot, the officer picked up the casings and left the scene. He never said, retain your dogs, I have a gun. He never said, I'm a police officer. He never said anything. Until a good time into the morning, after he'd already spoken with my grandmother, with my son's grandmother, as she asked him why he felt he needed to do that, he later stated, the dog bit me. He never stated it to her that entire 5-minute conversation that morning. Now, when he came out with this supposed bite, he stated that the dog bit him in the buttocks, okay? He came and approached this dog head on face first and shot her in the head. And as he turned around, she supposedly bit him in the buttocks. She was dead at that point. I have one more thing to say, if you can bear with me. The very next morning, we gathered to bury this dog. We had already sent her off for an autopsy to Roanoke Island. We were all there together. Things have calmed down. Who does Kitty Hawk Police Department send to investigate across the street? The very officer that this man, Jonathan, had to witness killing his dog. That very officer came back, stood at the top of our driveway. Jonathan said, that is the man that killed our dog. Lynette is, we can't even peel her off of the driveway. She's wailing like she has lost a child, okay? And what does this officer say? Looks at Jonathan and says, you're gonna cry about your dead dog. We all heard that. We all heard that, and besides that, there was a lot of video that went on during this incident. I was immediately triggered, immediately. I felt broken. I'm looking at this man laughing at my son's father, stating that he shouldn't be crying that his dog is dead. And it was clearly an opportunity for Kitty Hawk Police Department to retaliate by sending the very officer that just murdered our dog to come to the property. When asked why those two police officers were sent to our property the next morning across the street, why couldn't they send anyone else? They were the only two officers on duty that morning, okay? These two officers arrested me, arrested my son, left the two weeping owners of the dog and their daughter, Lydia, I'm sorry, I didn't include you, in the yard wailing, put us both in the vehicle and spent the next 2-3 hours with us in the Manio Police Department. So you're telling me you're only two officers on duty that morning, the two they had to send to investigate the property across the street that stopped and mocked us, then spent 3 hours in the police station. So you all had no duty officers on duty that morning? And that is where we are left. I now have a criminal charge that I get to go and defend myself for, so that they could rack up a couple against us. I know how this works. They were sent there with intention. And I want you all to know that's the rest of the story. It didn't end with the death of our dog.
Thank you, ma'am. Lynn?
No one else has signed up.
Okay. Just before the meeting started, I received a text to be read under public comment from someone who was planning on speaking at tonight's event. Hope the mayor and council worked with these folks for pop-up tents and food trucks. They have gone outside the box to create new professional and fun businesses. They are struggling to find ways to live in Dare County. Please find a way to work with these people who are trying to make a decent living, provide for their families, and stay in Dare County. FYI, I'm not associated with any of them, but I have shopped with them. This may be read at the meeting. Thank you, Peggy Corbell Langley. Thank you, Ms. Langley. We have 2 more emails from people who are out of town who've asked to be read at the meeting tonight under public comment, and Lynn has graciously accepted the job of reading it. Thank you, Lynn.
This one's from Janet Mayfield. Dear Mayor and council members, I attended the Kitty Hawk Town Council meeting on September 6th, 2022. I attended for the purpose of supporting the itinerant vendor issue. I am a permanent resident of Dare County and also an artist vendor. Amy Hill, with her Muse Bus 252, helped me to realize my dream of selling my artwork to visitors as well as locals. I also display my artwork in the former Dare County Arts Council, now known as Dare Art. I, along with many vendors, was extremely pleased with the support we received from all members of the Kitty Hawk Council. We were especially pleased with your decision to lift the moratorium on issuing pop-up markets. To my disappointment, I have recently been notified the RIART was denied the permit for her fall markets because the town manager unilaterally disregarded the council's decision and the public's wishes. I cannot imagine why the town manager would not allow vendors who are our neighbors to be denied the opportunity to make a living or supplement their income from their hard work and entrepreneurial endeavors. Per your website, the town of Kitty Hawk operates under the council manager form of government, and the council makes all local policies and has the final decision-making authority. I raise the question, why? If the town manager implements the policies created by the council, why did the town manager deny the permit when the council lifted the moratorium? Please read my comments into the public comments section of the October 3rd meeting of the Kitty Hawk Town Council. Thank you, Janet Mayfield. The next one's from Amy Hill. Good morning, Rob, Mayor, and council members. I spent the last several weeks trying to decide what follow-up I wanted to send to you regarding the itinerant vendor issue in Kitty Hawk. The more I've investigated and reread the current ordinance titled Public Sale of Goods, the more it appears to me and my friends in the legal field that mobile vendors and mobile food vendors actually are allowed currently to operate in the town of Kitty Hawk on private property. The current ordinance covers public property only, and basically the town seems to have been requiring people like myself to secure and pay for event permits that were not at all necessary. The last line, or on parking lots and other areas open to the public, which are contiguous to the state highway and town streets right away, was possibly an attempt at including private property by mentioning properties contiguous to public property. That line could simply be removed and replaced with more appropriate wording to further protect public property, something to the effect of, so long as the use doesn't impede access to public rights of ways, highways, etc. It has still not been established why a mobile vendor selling goods requires restriction or extensive regulation when a mobile vendor offering services can do anything they please in the town. Please note, I've said why, not how. The only thing required of a brick and mortar to operate in the town of Kitty Hawk currently is a one-sheet piece of paper with your name, address, and phone number on it. I'm not even sure that's required of mobile groomers, mobile chefs, mobile masseuses, contractors, the knife sharpening guy, beach picnic businesses, equipment setup businesses. I could go on. So why would more be required from a food truck that is already regulated by the county health department to the same extent every other restaurant is regulated? On my bus, which is a legal vehicle insured by the state of North Carolina, carrying the same liability insurance as any brick and mortar, from which I operate a perfectly legal, federally and state registered, tax-paying, revenue-generating business. I can't think of another business that is required to file for and pay for a permit every single day of its operation. My mobile groomer parked in the street for several hours to groom my dog recently. Landscapers do the same thing all day long. Beach equipment setup companies and picnic companies are operating on our public beaches and parking on public streets and parking lots to do so. I'm not asking to park on public streets, simply for the ability to partner with local businesses to operate freely on their private property to the benefit of us both. Was that a warning for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have to stop?
That's Miss
I have 2 paragraphs.
That's Miss Amy Hill, right?
I only have 2 paragraphs.
Okay, go ahead.
At the September meeting, the mayor made it abundantly clear that he wanted to make sure that any and all regulations or changes put into place were fair for everyone and the same for everyone. So does that everyone include myself and other food trucks and other mobile vendors? If a mobile business offering services can operate without excessive restriction, without the expense and burden of a daily permit, then why not a mobile business with goods? All we are asking for is the opportunity to operate mobile businesses on private property within the town, including using parking lots which are adjacent to the highway which promote exposure and more patrons. I sincerely appreciate the understanding of the council members regarding the urgency to lift the moratorium, which shuttered in many micro and small businesses at the end of our summer. I've CC'd them here and would also request it be read during public comment in the October meeting. Thank you for your time, Amy Hill. Next time I'll read faster.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn, very much. Lynn, is there anyone else signed up?
No, sir.
Again, is there anyone else who would like to speak at this public comment about any topic? Okay, let the record show no one else chose to speak. Consent agenda. Council, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Thank you, Lynn. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We had no items removed. Mr. Robb, time code amendment. And when Rob gets through, as you can see, we've got a couple of motions on the agenda, but I've got something I'd like to say, and I think you all do too. That's appropriate, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. You can see there's a couple of proposed amendments to section 18. As mentioned in the public comment period, the first one is striking section 18-11A5. It states that an outdoor event or gathering is unlike the customary use or usual activities generally associated with the principal use of the property where the outdoor event or gathering is to be located. So restated, an outdoor gathering permit cannot be issued to allow an outdoor sale of the same merchandise that's offered within the offered for sale within the store. Again, the first proposed amendment eliminates that requirement. So the type of event that we've heard a lot about tonight is not prohibited currently in the town of Kitty Hawk. It just has to be permitted on a commercial property that is unlike that particular use. Again, this would allow that use to be, or that type of outdoor event to be done at the same type of commercial establishment. The second proposed amendment to section 18 is under 18B that adds that outdoor event permits are limited to 2 permits per parcel in a 12-month period. Currently, there are no limits as to how many outdoor event permits a property owner can request on their commercial property. Outdoor event permits are valid for 7 consecutive days. Hypothetically, while it's maybe an extreme example, a commercial property owner could currently pay the separate application fee and submit applications for every week of the year, and what's intended to be written for a temporary event could become more permanent in nature. To remedy that, the staff's proposing the mentioned limit. In addition, just kind of going through the ordinance, it's referenced as outdoor events and gatherings. Proposing to strike through the gatherings part of it, just call them outdoor events because that's typically what we see coming in under these permit applications. And then as there's some question as to the applicability of section 16-1, the proposed language stated in there to be replaced with business activities of itinerant merchants, salesmen, promoters, drummers, peddlers, flea market operators, and flea market vendors or hawkers are prohibited within the boundaries of the town except as authorized by section 18-11 and 42-502. 42-502 is where we have our temporary uses in the zoning ordinance, which is kind of my end goal of where to look to put some of these type of uses. Just to be clear, that language, that business activities of itinerant merchants and so on, that's taken straight from the state statutes that enables localities to regulate, restrict, or prohibit itinerant merchant activities. Again, we're not trying to prohibit them, but trying to find a way to make it work. And I think as staff came up with these proposals, we kind of we're aiming to get a bit of a compromise between the commercial property owners who have issues with the
temporary markets by restricting to the amount of permits that can be pulled, and then to try to give a little more freedom to the ones that were pulling the permits by taking away the restriction to have it on, or not be permitted on the light type use. That, I guess that's really all I've got for you.
Okay, Council, any questions for Rob right now?
Yeah, I did. Bunch.
Well, I've got a whole lot here too.
Where are you going to start?
Rob, you have worked extremely hard on this. I have been in your presence when you were able to control your composure probably better than a lot of people could have. Seems like we've got a no-win situation here. Council, there's some two motions before us that we will entertain here in just a minute, but it seems like from the conversations, emails, phone calls that we've got, what you come up with, Rob, is not a real winner. So we may have to go back to work. It's not your fault. Let me read something here. I've been on this council now for 9 years. Jeff and I both have. Planning Board and Board of Adjustment before that. And in all that time, we have never had the problems with the timed ordinances we've had with this one. Seems like it just happened all of a sudden. We've had a lot of emails and phone calls pertaining to itinerant vendors and outdoor gatherings. And yes, I'm going to say this in a good way, Marty. Your name is very familiar, but that's not a bad thing, all right? Very familiar, but you don't mind letting us know, and I appreciate that. You may not think so, but I do. Some of those phone calls and emails think we need to be more restrictive, some less restrictive. Some think we should have no vendors in our town at all. Somewhere in there's got to be a happy medium. At our last council meeting, this was mentioned tonight in September, we decided that changes need to be made. We decided to take into consideration some of the comments and suggestions that were made by people who were sitting out here in this room right now, and hopefully come up with a new and better ordinance to present to the Planning Board. We also discussed coming up with something in the interim that would work until we could have that presentation to council from the Planning Board. That plan obviously did not work. Trust me, this council is just as frustrated as you are that we have not been able to come up and agree on an ordinance that will work for everybody. Tonight, hopefully, we can come up with a plan that will at least work in the interim until a new ordinance can be adopted. To help with that new ordinance, I have asked Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Pruitt, thank you again, Jeff, to take on the role as liaison, to meet with you folks, to meet with Rob, meet with Andy, to see what kind of plan we can come up with, hopefully something that will work. But everyone here needs to know, in this room and is at home listening, and his email that is not here, I'm sure there are going to be some things that are not going to make everybody happy. There are going to be things that are not going to make me happy or this council happy. But we are sitting here to do things and make decisions for the betterment of that time, of this time. Just because I don't like it, if I think it's what's best for this time, that's what we're going to do. That's why we're elected. That's why we're sitting here. Jeff, this is your thing, but I would suggest a committee. We've had some volunteers here just tonight to volunteer to be on that committee. Maybe some business owners, some citizens can meet with you. You can use this room right here. I would definitely involve Rob, Andy, and Casey in case any legal matters come up that we can put an end to right there. Try to come up with something to present to the Planning Board and present to this council, but you are in charge. Hopefully that task is going to be easier than we think it is. I see you shaking your head already. So let's just slow down, folks, and find a good solution, something that's going to work for everybody, that's equal to everybody, and we can do the right thing for our town. Okay? That's the reason these ordinances are in place in the first place, because people want to control what happens in their town, and that's what we're trying to do with your help and your input. Okay? That's my thoughts. David?
Good luck, Jeff.
You're welcome.
For you, buddy.
Thank you again, Jeff.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jeff.
right.
That's it?
That's it for me. I do want it to work. I mean,
Oh, yes, we
all
all-
honesty,
we all
I'm
want
making light of a situation that's serious, but it's gonna be, you're not gonna make everybody happy.
No,
So,
that's fine.
I received a phone call at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and I'm going to find out, well, I know who gave her my cell number, from a very unhappy restaurant owner here in this town who does not think we need to have food trucks in Kitty Hawk at all. She had some,
any more restaurants either then, right?
she had some good arguments
Starbucks.
behind what she said. That's not what we're talking about.
I will say this, I have not personally had one single complaint from anybody. I'm curious if I'm by myself, except for the call you got today.
And I hear the food truck has great food.
It
Well, I've heard
does.
that a number of times, it's got great food.
It does. I do want to say something.
I didn't say I agreed with what she was telling me now. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, may I just request that the council to help staff out, can we make up, how do you want to handle selecting the members to sit on? Is it going to be a 5-member committee, a 7-member committee? And do we want to accept applications, or how's this going to work as far as, and what would be the qualifications to sit on this committee? Given that I believe the point what you're trying to make is what is it that the town residents and
We
the
gotta
people
know what they want.
that do business here, what do they want? Yep.
And if there's some people here tonight that would like their name considered, turn in your name before you leave, please, you know?
I'll make a recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Maybe they can get together and nominate who they, I mean, you can't have a bunch of people, so
Right.
everybody get together and make a nomination of choice by committee.
How's that,
becomes the
how's that, is that a good idea, maybe? To start with, anyway. And then Jeff, line up when we have our first meeting.
Wait when we get around, and then,
I just wanted to say that things are changing. The way we do business, the way we operate. 2 years ago, when we had that horrible spring when no one could do anything, people had to get inventive to make a living. And one of the things that came out of it was the work-at-home life. Once you got over the transition of having to establish a mindset of being at work, a lot of people were able to be more productive at home simply because they had no other distractions. Sometimes working in the office can be more distracting than productive. So now we have a lot of people who work from home, and they can move anywhere in the country and still work for the same company, still work in the same home office, but they're a remote site. I know several people who have moved out of state simply because they had the opportunity to do it and still retain their employment. So this brings in a whole lot of changes. There's changes in the way we do business. We've never had the opportunity to have deliveries and pick up, no contact, remote ordering. I love not going to the grocery store. I'd rather pull in the food line in Walmart's parking lot and have someone put my groceries in my car than go to a day spa for 6 hours.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Sounds like she is, yes.
I am. You do not know how wonderful it is not to have to push a cart around the grocery store and get groceries. I just think it's the greatest thing that came out of COVID, aside from the vaccine, so I don't die from it. We need to change our mindsets. We need to be more flexible and work with what's available. We have a limited amount of commercial space. If you're an artist, you have a limited amount of inventory that you can produce. You can't support the rent of square footage to be able to make profit from your creativity. We don't have an indoor market where you could go and get just a small 8x10. Nor do you have the time to sit there at that desk in that 8x10 display area and be creative. A lot of times, the things you do aren't portable. You can't take power saws with you wherever you go. You need to be able to work in your own space and produce whatever you're producing for the enjoyment of other people. When we're trying to get something that works for everybody, you're not going to get something that works for everybody. Some people won't be happy no matter what you do. Other people feel restricted. Jeff, you have my thoughts and prayers.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, here we go. I agree with Marty. Marty's in a tough situation. If we do what we're talking about, then the owner could have whatever he wants and you could be left out. Okay, here's my big question. We seem to be talking strictly about art here. How is this going to apply with somebody that wants to sell vegetables? How about if this moves on to, are we able to just say, okay, we're going to let art be sold in the parking lots and not other seafoods or vegetables or automobile parts or, you know, so when I'm thinking about this, next of all, quote from one of the remarks is, we use the parking lots to set up, okay? Well, being on the planning board, we base all of our square footage and numbers of tables in the restaurants and businesses' sizes and everything around parking. So in order to have so many tables in a restaurant, you have to have so many parking places. Is that not correct? So if that restaurant's open during the day and they're using the parking lot, why do we make, how's that fitting in of all the tables that we've made people not have? There's a lot of questions like that I think are too much to answer right here tonight. I think some of them can be smoothed over and maybe some of them, as we say, might not be able to. There's going to be a lot more questions. I have questions from the food truck, whether we're going to allow them at all, or if you own the business, can you have it? Or can I set up at the thrift shop and sell tacos two times right by Bad Bean? It's just a lot of scenarios that aren't answered here for me tonight, that some of the questions I'm asking right now that y'all are hearing, that if you could help me and some of the people to understand. I'm going to use a fine example, the Catholic Church on a Saturday. To me, if this was happening there, this would be a no-brainer to me. I would say go for it, have fun. There's 35 parking places in 4.5. I went by there today. Would we have a limit of the number of tents that could be in? If there's 35 parking lots and we have 35 tents, then we've got a problem and we're going to be parked down 158 and down Howlett Street and all around. I see numerous problems that we need to work out. And so I'm all ears. I'm willing to help. I have a house full of art. I bought all my stuff from Seafood Festival. I've been to private parties at the Sea Ranch where they have an artist party. Some of y'all might participate in that, where artists go and rent a couple suites and you go before Christmas and buy Christmas presents. So there's ways, but there's also concerns of business people that we have to consider here. It's not that we're not, by no means. I wish we had a common area as a town to offer y'all. I really do, but we don't. And so I hope we can work something out, and I'm willing to work with y'all the best I can.
Thank you, Jeff. Good point. Charlotte?
That is hard. I think, I know Lynn and I last meeting, we stepped up and we tried to lift the moratorium and try to give them some relief and everything. And it set me back when I read a Facebook post from Amy Hill. And it really, it wasn't as nice as that letter you read tonight. But I'm willing to help any way I can to get it straight and to make it workable for everybody. And I have a lot of compassion on both sides. I know restaurants display art that's for sale a lot of times, and the Women's Club has an arts and crafts show every, I think, November. And there's just a lot of venues, and we have a lot of artists and where they're displaying their crafts and things. We have a lot of stores that have that, and some of them that are just Outer Banks crafts. So I think there's a way to work it out, but everybody needs to be patient and kind and try to give it their best to work it out.
Thank you, Charlotte. Council, let's do it this way.
There's one more question I have.
Yes.
Is there a possibility we could do something tonight that these folks would be able to have
We're going to talk
some
about
income before the end of the year?
We're going to discuss that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do it this way, Council. I'm going to make a motion, and if I can get a second, then we can have a lot of discussion after the motion has been seconded. Exactly what you're just talking about. Sorry about this, Rob. I move to deny the proposed town code amendment regarding itinerant merchants and outdoor events. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you, Council. Okay, let's have some, what kind of question did you have? Something we can do in the interim? I agree with you 100%.
What can we do in the interim, given the...
Go back to the ordinance as it is.
The ordinance as it is. Could you summarize why their application for permit was denied?
So under the outdoor gathering permit that or process that we have for applying for those type permits, and Rob brought it up in his presentation as well, but one of the issues that you run into is that they must be the outdoor vendors, if you will, participating in that gathering must be unlike, and I'm going to go verbatim out of our code so that way nobody's mischaracterizing anything, unlike the customary or usual activities generally associated with the principal use of the property where the outdoor event or gathering is to be located. The issue that I'll just say that we're running into more often than not is not the scenario, Jeff, I think you said it, where we're at the Catholic Church and it opens up its doors and it sponsors an outdoor gathering event where vendors come, and whether it's charity or for profit, but they're set up and they're selling their goods, whatever they may be. That's not a situation that requires a lot of thought because, again, those activities are unlike a church. and unlike what goes on at a church. But when you've got these mixed-use developments, these commercial strips, if you will, that have X number of tenants within there, the problem with the way that our code reads is that it says on the property. It doesn't say must be unlike the use of the business owner that is sponsoring the gathering, right? So in other words, if a restaurant wants to sponsor a art sale, and I'm just saying art because that's what comes up most often, well, okay, that's fine. However, what about the art store or similar store next door to that restaurant on the same commercial parcel? You see, now we're running afoul of the ordinance in and of itself. You've got a scenario where you don't, in my mind and in my opinion, which is why I went as detailed as I did, it's not a popular opinion, but again, I'm from an area where I grew up, food trucks are all around. I mean, and it's not about what I like, what I don't like, what I support, what I don't support. It's what does our code say? And that's my job. And again, I think that one portion, if you will, of the intent of this ordinance is to prevent one particular brick and mortar business owner from kind of expanding its doors, right, into the parking lot. So now you're actually able to perform more services than what you were permitted for. That would be one. And then the other would be to prevent competition amongst owners on that property, other business owners on that property. So it's our limited space here, the number of commercial type strips that we have. That in my mind is what is creating a lot of
So
the
it's
issue.
not the event, it's the location of the event.
I think that, well, I mean, location's everything, right? So yes, indeed.
All right, what can we do in the interim until we, yes?
I have a relevant thing to say, as long as we're concerned with private property and mixed-use developments and so on. I used to run a photo lab down here 30-some years ago, and we had to limit the number of pickup spots that we had, not because, well, because those people had competing businesses on their properties, and it was in their contract within there to limit us in there. We were not limited by the city, we were limited by those. So if I wanted to go in and do something that was in direct competition with one of those businesses there, their rental agreement with their property developer precluded me from using that, and that took care of it. I was not, it did not need a regulation from the city to tell them that I didn't need to open a burger joint in a burger joint.
Thank you, thank you. So what can we do?
I have one question. Are we talking about opening this up to produce, seafood, everything? How can y'all clear this up?
Touch on that more.
How are we going to justify?
It's really not clear. That's
So
why
how are we going to justify telling the farmer he can't sell corn?
Right. And I was, the intent is not for this to be, the finished product. Like
Okay, right.
Kind of in the interim, while we do a more comprehensive look at the temporary use ordinance, the outdoor gathering, food trucks, the whole gambit. But it's one of those things that is just not entirely clear in the ordinance as it is. Right now, if somebody wanted to come in and the way it's worded right now, if somebody wanted to come in and apply for an outdoor gathering permit, as long as those 1 through 5 were met and the other parts of the site plan review were met, then we issued a permit. So if somebody wanted to, I guess, pull and Casey can correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody wanted to pull a 1 week outdoor gathering permit to sell produce in front of the auto parts store, I guess we would do it.
Suggestion, Casey, any suggestion for tonight?
I don't have the counter argument that I've heard from the landowner, as the gentleman said there in the audience, is the business has to give approval for an itinerary merchant to park there anyway. So in my mind, the issue comes down to the business owners and the residents of the town. Those are the two players that are in this, unless the town's going to allow them on their property or the business owner is going to allow them on their property. The issue that I've heard with some business owners is they charge rent for their building. and then they turn around and they pay property tax back to the town. So this wasn't an ordinance that the town put into place, sorry. This was not an ordinance that the town put into place with anybody sitting up here. The original intent behind the town is to, the inhabitants of the town set the laws and the rules, and back in the day, the business owners used to live in the community, so it was a way to protect. That's why you incorporate as a town, to protect the property owners in the town. So that's their argument from their side, and so it really comes down to, like the gentleman said, the business owners, the property owners, because the property owner has to give them permission to set up, and the residents. And so for my mind, those are the ones that should be the ones coming up and generating an ordinance with the input from the itinerary merchants, because we can't control the itinerary. We don't know if there's going to be an itinerary merchant from Virginia Beach, from Kildover Hills. Doesn't matter. They're coming into town to do business on landowners' property that pay property taxes to the town. And that is in the charter of the town. That's how the town was formed. And that's, and the council represents the residents, of course. But that's sort of just the other side of the argument. And so it is a very difficult thing to make everybody happy, like you said. The existing ordinance, however, that's in place allows for a market, currently allows for this. It just doesn't allow for it at the business that sells the art, because they're having a market that sells the same thing, so it could compete against someone else. You know, they don't want to have an event that competes with their own business, and that's why it's there. It's to protect what the residents that used to live here and do business, which there are still residents that live here and do business, but just not as much as there are anymore. Things have changed. So the market can go on. It just can't go on there because they sell art at that location. They could go to Napa and have their market across the street. If they get permission from the Napa owner of the property, they can do that under the existing ordinance because they're not competing with each other. So the issue is, what we were looking to do was kind of accommodate to where somebody that sells the same product in their store can have a market, but it's limited. So if there is another person selling something nearby in that same plaza, this doesn't compete with them on a full-time basis. So this ordinance that was denied allowed for 2 outdoor event permits. The ordinance can be changed. You guys can change the ordinance like tonight. We took the directive from the council at the last meeting to answer the email that was sent. We can't go, there was an ordinance in place, and so when we looked at the ordinance, we had to follow the law of the ordinance. We tried to work with everybody. At one point in time, the town staff was reading the ordinance wrong and is issuing permits to accommodate those things until we got a complaint from a property owner next door. And so we had to go by the law of the ordinance. And that's what I did to protect the town. That's why Casey did it. You know, there's 2 sides of the argument, and there's also a thing called, you know, lawsuits and things of that nature. And so my job as a town manager is to protect the town. And I have to try, if I know, you know, there's things that take place in towns that we don't realize are in the ordinance, and we do on a day-to-day basis, and we just kind of get into a routine. But when it's called into question to protect the residents, we come back to what says in the code. And so that's the only reason. Rob, myself, Casey, our job is to stay neutral and do what the town council tells us to do. But I can't willingly go against an ordinance because there is that other thing out here called lawsuits nowadays, and that's sad.
I have a question.
But it's the truth.
How is it, tell me where the competition is over there on that side of the street.
Across the street.
Okay, that's not in the same strip mall though. It's across the body.
It is across the street, yep.
Right.
But our ordinance doesn't allow the current way it currently reads. It doesn't allow for the same type of market sales stuff out in the market that the business owner has.
But if they did it at Napa, they still complain because right down the street.
They're still across the street.
That's what I'm having a hard time with right now.
That's right. As long as it met that.
And they can pull a permit every week and stay open every week.
They could complain, but it would be within the ordinance.
But I understand, to this gentleman's point earlier, if I own a strip mall, I would put I've written leases myself where there's non-competes in there. You can't sell a burger when you sell a burger. You got to rent somewhere else.
But how about in the parking lot?
Well, that's all new.
That's what's wrong.
Right, but I'm having a hard time with why they can't.
sponsor their own outdoor sales.
If the strip mall owner don't care, then I don't think we should care what somebody across the street thinks. That's just my opinion.
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same, because there have been several different requests that have come to our attention. So the across the street thing, Rob, Phil.
Yeah, if I'm missing something, I'm sorry, but I'm having a problem.
Right, so McDonald's, Burger King, and all those guys are right there together.
Well, they do that. That's all, I understand. But Rob, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm not sure about the history of it is the complaint came from the property owner across the street because it was a similar business. And upon looking into the ordinance after receiving the complaint, we saw that it was not, the outdoor gathering permit was not issued consistent with the ordinance.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. It wasn't compliant with 18-11 A5, the one where it talks about the unlike customary uses. And it also was issued for 5 consecutive Sundays, where the ordinance clearly states that the permit is valid for 7 consecutive days. So the original permits over the summer should not have been issued the way they were. That's what got us all to this point looking at the ordinance to try to figure out how to fix it moving forward.
But now,
the easiest, you asked what can be done to allow them to pull the permits that they're requested for as is. The easiest, the fastest way to do that is just striking that 1811A5. That's the only thing holding up the permit as it is.
But to clarify, that somebody could have an outdoor gathering permit and they can apply for it every week and do it technically 365 days a year. So that's what this ordinance that we propose kind of puts a limit. So if you want to have an event, a marketplace outside your store, we're going to allow that. But we're not going to allow it 365 days to be an outside with whatever vendors that you want to bring in or whatever you want to sell out front. I mean, that we have parking requirements and things like that.
I understand all that, but
yeah, to answer the competition thing.
Yeah.
So remember I said there's 2 prongs to it though. One is to not be able to not create competition in, say, a commercial strip. Because it is true that if it's Napa, right, and across the street is an art store, well, that doesn't matter because that's not on the same piece of property. And by our code, that's not creating competition. But the other prong, though, is to not allow the brick and mortar business to expand its boundaries. And that's what we're dealing with in this particular case because of the similarity of the business owner and what they're requesting them to be able to do.
We've got different things. You're exactly right.
We have one issue that is an existing business who wants to have a yard sale a couple times a year. His own inventory, clean his store out, season change, models of cars change, auto parts store, no matter what kind of a store it is, they want to expand twice a year. They want to sell handmade Christmas ornaments to go with their Christmas trees, whatever. They want to go outside of their store. That's one of the issues. And that's, I don't believe, even part of itinerant merchant. I think that's outdoor display of goods, where we have, furniture stores who would love to fill half their parking lot with outdoor furniture every March.
Currently, itinerary merchants are prohibited in the Kitty Hawk, the way the code reads.
But these outdoor sales are prohibited.
But these
also.
outdoor gathering permits, they are allowed to, that's how we've been operating, but yeah, we'd have to change, yeah.
We also have an issue where a person who has a particular store hosted an outdoor market, so to speak, and invited other like merchants to come and work together. And someone in a different property across the street lodged the complaint because they read the fine points of the ordinance and said, aha, this is how I can stop it. And called it to our attention.
All right, Council, we've think we all agree we've got an ordinance that needs to be updated and changed.
Well, I
No
want,
doubt about that. So what can we do tonight for these people until the committee starts and start meeting? What can we do to help them?
well, I want to add one more point. I'm also do support the brick and mortar stores. I want to be fair to both sides, 100%. But I also think times are changing. You know, you take food trucks, RV travel, people enjoy going to these open air markets. I'm not saying they need to be scattered all up and down to bypass every single day, but I mean, I just don't understand why. I don't know. I just like to fix it. So.
Well, from the town standpoint, we just purchased the Centerra property, and there's a parking lot there that.
Why can't we let them go up there? Or the dog park?
We could temporarily.
That's what I was suggesting, that going back.
If the town wants to host a market and allow this to take place, we have the land to do it now, but it would have to be, we would advertise it and allow vendors to show up.
And they could all go do their open air market stuff there?
But it would not be every day, wouldn't be, yeah.
Kill Devil Hills did something very similar with the First Flight Market.
They do it at Dowdy Park, right?
Dowdy Park,
I mean, but yes.
Yes, what do other towns do?
Yeah.
What do other towns do?
I can't speak for other towns. I know Nags Head, Dowdy Park, I think allows
What's
it.
Kill Devil Hills do?
Kill Devil Hills has a scenario where you can do charitable events, wherein the profits essentially of the business owner that's licensing the event, those profits have to be entirely donated to charity. And you can't do, however, for-profit events except for outside the season, so September through March, for example, and they're limited in number of how many times. So KDH is totally different setup here. Now we've got other towns. I know for one of Southern Shores or Duck, Rob actually probably would know better, but one of those two prohibit altogether, at least itinerant merchants. So I think this is an issue that obviously KDH is going through a lawsuit right now over their itinerant merchant ordinance, the one I was just discussing. Other towns are going to be presented with these same issues as times change. So, because other towns are as restrictive, if not certainly more restrictive than what you guys were looking at tonight. Other towns out here on the beach are. So
Well, you guys can come up with the best practice, and then they can all do it, see? Right?
The mall that they were set up in isn't ideal either. That's very small. The parking's an issue, even on a daily basis, not just when you've got a festival there. It's not adequate, I don't think.
All right, council, we need to make a decision.
Issue the permits.
Can we strike that one sentence?
Could we strike the 1811, then you could issue permits?
Can we not include the limit of 2 per parcel?
it can be done. It can be done.
I mean, if we have 2 per parcel, if we could eliminate that, these folks could operate every other weekend through Christmas and generate some income for themselves.
But does that mean seafood people and farmers and everybody can do this? Because I've got a lot of people, wanting.
Hold on, guys.
Excuse me. I'm just asking the attorney. I've been asked these questions, folks. I get the emails. I got to respond. I need to know.
But the health department has things to say about seafood sales. And I believe, they have to be refrigerated.
Well, the health department's going to have something to say about a food truck. So
I'm not talking about.
Let's try to come back to order in this meeting, please.
We're not. Jeff,
If we're going to limit, I do not like the number 2.
Thank you.
4, 6, give them a chance to do, 2 is not enough, in my opinion.
I agree.
Okay. Well, this, like I said, this ordinance can be changed. We can come back next month and change it.
Yeah.
We can come back while the committee is, what you're saying, is working on taking all issues and trying to come up with something that works for everybody. We can always change an ordinance. So that's totally up to the council.
We strike through. Casey, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, just piggybacking off of what Lynn said, and then the mayor said he doesn't like the number 2. You could adopt, it's your decision. It's not part of the zoning ordinance, right? This is part of our town code outside of zoning.
So 4, if you give it to 4, they would, by the way this is written, they'd be able to operate 4 weeks, because it's a 7-day permit. They would be operate basically for an entire month, or the council can strike it and allow 2 days, 2-day permit for 4 different permits. And then they would be able to do
How about a
4 events a year for right now, and that would get us probably till December. I mean, unless they're wanting to do events every weekend.
I like the 2-day permit.
I like what you said. I do too.
I like that.
I like 3, why can't we have
And do 4
6
times.
permits for 3 days each?
That's a lot of.
And y'all can. So the answer is, just before y'all begin any discussion on that, is can that be done? Yes, you can do that tonight if you would like to.
Who would like to make that a motion?
But we still need to work on the committee.
Yes, the committee's.
This is
yeah.
just to get us by till we can clear up some of this air. So,
Would
so we gonna
that
go back?
help, folks? That's
I'll
what we want.
I'll make that motion.
You made the motion?
I will.
Lynn, do you have that motion?
Is it the same?
You need Andy to repeat that? Andy,
Andy, repeat.
Can you repeat that motion?
What did I just say? Sorry. No. For
2 days.
each parcel owner gets 4 permits, and the permits are good for a 2-day period. So that would be, and they would be,
Actually,
yeah, if they want to do it Monday and Tuesday.
Because it was your idea, I'll let you make the motion.
Over a 12-month period, so they can do it January, March, they can do it all of January for 2 days, or they can do it consecutively for the full 8 days.
Okay, we got a motion, we need a second, I'll second
No,
it.
wait a minute. I would really like it to be for 3 days and 4 times.
Hold on. Was there a motion and a second?
I haven't made the motion.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, these markets are, well, they're talking about to have these markets, and I think the point of the outdoor gathering wasn't to have it like 365 days a year.
Yeah.
So I would disagree with that, because then you can put anything, you could technically put anything you wanted anywhere as long as you got the permit. But
So Lynn, what's your motion?
Make the motion.
So what are we going to move for?
2.
Let's do baby steps.
Yeah.
All right.
2.
I'll make the motion and then someone can say, I'll second it if you change this.
That helps.
Okay. As soon as I find it. I don't want to quote the numbers wrong. We'll end up parking fire trucks in the church.
it's down at the bottom. You'd be under
Last page.
permits. 4 permits per parcel.
Hold on, folks, we're trying.
Mr. Mayor.
So, and Ms. Lynn, what'll happen, you make that motion, but then at the end, you would just state the amendment that you're making to the motion, to the actual proposal in front of you.
And it's 4.
And let me say one more thing. I don't mean to chime in here. But when it comes back to the permission from the business owner, so as he signs the lease, as David, as Councilmember Hines was saying, the property owner will have to, they're the ones that have to get the permit on behalf of their businesses. So if you have 12 businesses, they're only entitled to 4. If he wants to sell them to these guys or whatever they want to do, or work it out in their leases, these business owners know this is what they have. They can do 4 of these a year, and they can divvy it out to 4 out of the 12 people, whoever requests it, or he can charge for it on their lease, however he wants to do it. But that's between the business owner. They're entitled, the business owner's entitled to the 4.
Right, I like that.
I mean, as it should be.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm good with that.
6 2 days is what she's asking.
6 2 days? 6 2 days.
What would, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the proposed town code amendment, amending section 16.1, section 18-11, subsection A5, and 18-11, subsection B, with the change that that the outdoor permits are limited to 6 permits for 2 days in a 12-month period, to carry them through the end of the year when we'll have a new ordinance for next
Is that a good motion, sir?
The motion is
need
fine. In order, Lynn? Okay.
I need a second, Council.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second that. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for bearing with us and for showing up tonight. Okay, council, we need to schedule a public hearing, item 7B.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to set a public hearing at the Town Council meeting on November the 7th, 2022, to consider the proposed text amendment to Section 42-419-7, which would raise the maximum building height in the PCD overlay from 35 feet to 45 feet.
Motion by Jeff, and then a second.
Second.
Second by Lynn. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
That is the night before we have the election the next day, and they're going to be wanting us out of here so they can set up for the,
Well, we usually have a meeting on...
at 5 o'clock. But if you have a public hearing, it's our business and the public hearing, right?
I don't think it'd be
No,
that.
it's advertised for 5 o'clock. I got it in here when we adjourned.
But it's, I know, but we have our meeting and the public hearing in that meeting.
Yes,
So that adds,
you know, kids going back to school.
No, let's go.
Good to see you.
All right, get them back.
Folks, we're still in, folks,
Excuse me.
Sorry, I thought, I was wondering if we were done.
we're still in session here at our meeting, folks. We'll give you time to leave if you want to leave. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. All right. Item 8A, Bafized parking expansion lease. I know that Andy has been working extremely hard. We're all aware of this for a long time to try to get us some extra parking. We finally got some information. But what does council want to do? Andy contacted me and I said, this is not going to be a decision I make. This is a council decision. What does council want to do? They have given us a price. So Andy, can you let us know what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. The item before you have this evening is a proposal from the United States Post Office that the town requested about 2 years ago. We reached out to the Postal Service, went through several different people to try to determine how we could get additional parking for the bathhouse, near the bathhouse area for beach parking. So after about 2 years of back and forth and several different people in the Postal Service, they were able to come back with a proposal to us that said they would lease us 21 spaces, which would be on the west side of the current beach parking. There's a map in the permit that you'll see attached that kind of shows you the sketch that we proposed to them that would give us about 21 additional spaces there at the bathhouse. But that requires a lease from the Postal Service. They do not sell any of their property, so you have to go through this company that leases it on their behalf. And the cost, you have to do the improvements yourself, and so the cost is was about 60-something thousand to construct the 21 spaces. And then they are only willing to issue us a 5-year license to utilize the space there on their property. It's hard to communicate with anybody. I mean, they have been, you know, this company J&L that I believe is their third party that assists them with their real estate contracts and things, has been working with us. I don't know if they go by a certain policy. I tried to tell them that we would even, if they could give us let us use the piece of land for a period of time, which really is not, they'll never be able to construct anything on that parcel, on that 25 feet because it was in a setback. I even mentioned that we would even put a sign up there that compliments the United States Postal Service, but it's federal government, and so this is what I got back. But town staff has worked to try to expand the parking. I know that was a big issue with Councilmember Walker and and Councilmember Hines when you guys ran for office, and so we've been working on that. Just not going to be able to. It's just, I don't think the dollars and cents add up for the parking, and not to know what we've got after the 5-year period. So we could possibly, my thoughts were maybe to try to run it up through maybe somebody at a higher level and maybe try to reach out to maybe a senator's office or probably somebody in the federal government to see if they could help us. But we just wanted to put it before the council because the mayor wanted us kind of just put it out there that we have been working on trying to find some additional parking along our beaches. Now, there is an easement, and I asked Casey to come today. We do have a recorded easement that runs somewhere through that parcel. It is for, I believe, road access, maybe not parking. I don't know if we could, there are some easements that we have in place, and I don't know if we could convert that to parking, but we can discuss that possibly at another time. Or you can hear from Casey tonight, and he can maybe tell you a little bit more about that easement, and then bring back at the next meeting things in more detail if that's what you all want to look at. But I know Casey recorded this easement a couple years ago on behalf of the town, and I'll let you explain more if you'd like to.
The previous property owner, or not previous, it was actually probably 4 or 5 back in the chain, but the developer of Keeper's Hill and then those portions where Quagmire, I mean not Quagmire's, but what was it, Frisco's, where it now Longboards, that parcel where the Postal Service exists used to, or it was part of that original development. Well, the developer reserved an easement essentially over and across the Postal Services. Now, it didn't get picked up in the Postal Services chain, but that doesn't matter because if you go back far enough, if it's perpetual, or if it's reserved, then that developer can give us that easement. And the developer did. We've got that recorded, and as far as that as a proposal, I agree. What I'd like to do, if you guys want to hear more about it, in terms of possibilities with what we can do to utilize easement, there's no doubt we can use it for access. We can get all the way to where the bathhouse is. There's no doubt about that. The question is just what more, if anything, can we do with that easement?
Can you work on that and report back?
I can have something ready, a report by next meeting, absolutely.
As bad as we need parking, I guess we should not be surprised that they're still making us pay this outrageous fee.
It's a terrible return on our
And we're
investment.
paying to do the improvements on the property. It's just terrible. Casey, that would be wonderful if you could.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
Now, I have a question, Andy, or maybe for Willie. Are we planning to do any more paid parking this winter on any of the side streets?
We'll take another look at that. Yeah, we'll go back, and I know we had looked at, we done Luke and Lariat, I believe.
Yeah.
Gotten a lot of compliments on it.
And how are we doing? Well, I'll wait for my council comments.
But I will look at those other streets that we had discussed, but we did get the 2 main ones done that would accommodate the most parking, and then, so there are some opportunities for possibly some other side streets there.
Thank you, Councilman. Comments from Town Manager, Andy? You've been extremely busy lately.
Nope, we have a flu shot, drive-through flu shot clinic here at Town Hall on October 25th from 1:30 to 4:30, first come, first serve. Outer Banks Hospital is sponsoring that event. Fall chipping service is October 10th. Our town clerk, Lynn Morris, wanted me to let everybody know that the council meeting in November will start at 5 o'clock due to the election, so don't forget about that. And we'll be having a groundbreaking coming up here at the end of the month. We'll get out a press release for that and some invitations. And that is, I've got
Debris pickup.
debris pickup, yes. That's fall chipping, is that what you're saying? Or large items?
Is that what that is?
Fall chipping, yes,
Okay.
is the vegetative debris, and that'll be October 10th. And then the porta potties at the new parking areas that we did install for the summer, they'll be removed October 17th. That was some of the houses that live, that have next door to that, some vacation homes that they own, and some permanent residents were worried about that, but I told them and assured them we will remove those in the wintertime. So it's going to be they're going to be there 3 to 4 months out of the year, and we'll have them removed. And then the bathhouse is scheduled to close on October 31st. And then the police department, what you approved tonight, the demolition will probably will not be able to take place until after we do an asbestos assessment on what we're going to demo, which is standard protocol. And that will start, the assessment will start on October 11th, and then it'll be sent off to the state and whatever else needs to be done. And then we will schedule for the demolition of the older part of the building, and we're currently in kind of sketching out and designing what the interior of that building for the police station itself, the offices there, kind of the layout. So, outside of that, let's see. That's all I have this evening, so.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. Casey?
Mayor, I have nothing this evening. Done enough talk.
Done enough talking?
Done enough talk.
David?
I do have a couple things. Back to the paid parking, I think when we were starting that project last winter, I asked to have crosswalks looked at.
Yeah.
For those areas. Is there any update on that?
Willie, I think we were talking about that at our staff meeting today.
Is that the lighting?
The crosswalks for the two new paid parking areas that we have.
We were looking to widen those, right?
Yes. We're trying to get the state to widen, it's a state road, so they have to widen them. And that's what we're like to do, and we're still looking into getting the crosswalk lighting like it was similar to what's in Kitty Hawk Road.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's good.
Great. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you. And then I had something else I want to talk about too. Our planning board consists of 5 members and 2 alternate members. The alternate members have to prepare the same way as a regular member, but yet if all other 5 are there, those 2 don't have the ability to vote. We are the only ones on the, and nobody else does it that way. I'm not sure why it was set up that way. But you all were, I think you were on the planning board. Craig, Jeff, you were, all 3 of you guys were, so you kind of are familiar with what I'm talking about. They're paid to be here anyway, so why did we not consider removing the alternate tag to their name?
I can't answer, but I know you can provide input, but you're not allowed to vote.
Yeah. Unless somebody, I mean, you're an equal part. I think it was done to, you know, just to make it more streamlined. I know the bigger boards get the more confusing, you know. I think 5 people's enough, you know, whether we don't have alternates but I think 5 people voting's enough. I don't think we need 7 voting.
I think it was done just to make sure that there was a quorum for voting.
I just think that's too many to vote.
You know, just because.
I just don't know why Kitty Hawk's the only town that doesn't like that.
Do they all have 7 members?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Board of Adjustments has alternates as well.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But the Board of Adjustments is a different criteria where, you know, that goes to Superior Court to get overturned. We can't overturn that. So.
Yeah.
Maybe something we can think about.
I'd like for us to think about it.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Good for tonight. Actually, I do have one more thing. I would like to, I'll send an email about that. I'm good for tonight, thank you.
All right. Lynn?
I have nothing. I'm talked out.
Jeff?
Tom, thanks again, buddy. It was fun. I appreciate it. Man, I really enjoyed the meetings with you, buddy. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I love watching you, all the improvements you did. Andy, thank you for everything you've done in securing our police department and future police department. Yes. You've done a great job, and the town saved us a lot of money, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I guess it closed.
Charlotte?
I'm good, thank you.
Did y'all not get notification that it was closed?
No, I didn't.
There was.
No.
Yeah, I got
I
something.
don't know, I can't remember. I sent so many emails, but I can look. Did
It
you get
said it
No.
would let us know when it does, but.
Maybe it was to the paper.
It was in the paper. That's
Maybe
right.
it was the paper. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I mean, I was notified that it was closed.
Sorry, Charlotte.
Of course, I called 4 times
Got
and
it from
asked.
Kip.
It was
I mean, what the
closed.
heck? Or somebody.
Okay. Anything else, Charlotte?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Folks, thank you. This has been a very emotional night. We've talked about a lot of things tonight, and I hope we've accomplished a few things anyway. Staff has done an outstanding job with the police station, with the summer tourists, with the lifeguards, everything. We're very fortunate here, and thank you, Andy, for all the hard work that you do.
100% positive.
Every day. Anything else, Council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Shaw. All in favor? Aye. Motion is adjourned.
Hey, Jeff.